Can you talk a little bit about kind of the evolution of just professional sports and how you see how the players of your generation
Hmm.
generally look different, if it's differently, if it's better or worse than kind of players of the generation?
I always say it's different. I try never to say something was better than, worse than. I stay away from that because every generation, you're dealt the cards of how things are right now or at that particular time. So, to say it's right or wrong, good or bad, better or worse, just different. Just different,
In what way?
Well, now there's so much coverage now, 24 hours news, the internet. Young players are constantly ranked. They're constantly looking on the internet to see where they're ranked and see where other players, as opposed to growing up during a time where coaches basically told you every year you just had to get better, and you just had to get better every year, and you didn't know what, growing up in Louisiana. Look, the closest I ever knew anything about Michigan was. I knew somebody that went to Detroit one time, I didn't know any other high school players. I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know who were the best players. You had never heard of them. There was no way for me to know. There was no internet. There was no ESPN. There was none of that. So you just kind of played, and what you did was you strived to be the best of where you were. Meaning, I'm in Louisiana. Karl Malone and I grew up together. So we just strived to be the best. It was almost like Carl said, look, I'm going to be the best big man in Louisiana. And I'm like, I'm going to be the best guard. And that's what we strive for. I had no idea what somebody in Texas or California or Michigan just had no idea of knowing what was going on with these other people. So all you could do was concentrate on your environment, where now kids know everything that's going on. And so, it's just different. It's just a different time.
Coming from a smaller school, McNeese State,
Mm-hmm.
can you talk a little bit about the challenges, or I like to call it the quest for legitimacy?
As everybody is standing around and you're in your first team meeting, and there's a kid from Michigan here, a kid from Kentucky, and from UCLA. You coming from a small school, you look around the room and you're constantly thinking to yourself, nobody is questioning whether those guys belong here or not. They're only questioning whether I belong here or not. And when I tell you there's an inherent chip that you develop to prove it, and you do it with a chip on your shoulder because there's almost a resentment of, how dare you question me because of the school I went to. It's not so much about the game or the person, it's just strictly based on the school you went to.
What did you say, this is what I want to accomplish in my professional basketball career?
Only after my rookie year was I truly able to start thinking about what I could do in this league. And the reason that is because I really do believe you have to go through the league 1 year. You have to face everybody. You have to see how good each guy is at your position that you're going to be competing against before you truly can say what you really want to do. You can say it before then, but you don't know because you haven't faced any of those guys. You have to go through the league one time. After my rookie year, then I realized I can have a lot of success in this league. Early on in my career, just how hard it was to be a world champion. Almost took it for granted. That was a mistake. Uh, we lost some heartbreakers to the Celtics. And in my mind, I thought, oh, we'll be back, no problem. And that's a mistake. You can't do that. You can't take it for granted that it's going to be there. And that hurt early. Now, I learned quickly from it and bounced back. But early on, that was a mistake. And I would advise any young player to don't take anything for granted, man. Seize the moment, man. Seize the moment. And I said carpe diem. I think in this particular role here, the biggest mistake I've made was probably the drafting of Darko Milicic. Not because he didn't turn out here, but because as I look back on it, I hadn't gotten all the homework that I needed. And I didn't request all the information from all of my scouts, and I didn't get it. And if I would have dug a little bit deeper, I probably would have found some of the issues that came up, but I didn't. And I learned from that. Not forget on the court once he got here. Just before, I didn't have all the background information that I should have had, and that was my fault. My scouts come back and say, "Oh man, we messed up. We should have." No, it's my fault. I should have demanded that kind of information, and I didn't. And ever since then, I have. So I probably learned more from that exercise than anything else I can remember in this seat.
Let's talk about the process of going from having to hang the shoes up and retiring. What was the most difficult part for you in that decision?
Nothing. Zero. There was nothing difficult about retiring for me. Absolutely nothing. And I'll tell you something. First of all, as a young athlete, I saw older athletes, whether it be boxing or football players or basketball players, I saw guys who stayed too long. You see boxers stay too long, you see. And I remember as a young athlete looking at that saying, never. I'm never going to put myself in that situation. So I was always cognizant of that. So when I got to 14 years, going into my 14th year, I knew, okay, this is it. I'm going to dedicate myself to having a really good year this year because this is my last year and I don't want to let down. So I threw everything into that last year to have a good year at 36 years old. I could walk away because, I can kind of compartmentalize things. That was my career. Now, this is, I throw everything I have into this, and my focus was become a world champion in this part of your life. That's over. I don't want to relive it. I'm not one of these guys that sit around and talk about, oh man, when we played, and I remember playing the Lakers and Jordan. I'd never sit around and talk about it. Now, somebody can ask me about it.
Sure.
You can come in and ask me about it, and I'll talk about it, and I don't have a problem talking about it. But in terms of me sitting around reliving it, no, it was over. I wrapped it up. I put a bow on it. Man, that was great. Now, you know what? Try to become a world champion. Try to become elite. Try to become great at this. And when I stop doing this, I'll put a bow on it, and I'll move on to the next thing. But I had no problems retiring. I said, I've never played again. Never.